Hello and welcome to episode 70 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast. Tonight on the pod, we have myself, Julian, CJ, and Guy to discuss the recent form. We have been away for a couple of weeks, so we've got four games to kind of discuss. Obviously, the main pull of it is going to be one win, two defeats, and a draw against 10 men. But that's fine. We might find some positives some way along the way. We also look ahead to Southend away at the weekend before ending with the most chaotic game of higher or lower possible, really, because I didn't know that the Zoom was going to cut out, but everyone else did. So that was fun. We crammed it in. So even if the episode you come away from it feeling more depressed about Aldershot's season ahead, you might come away with um, a bit of reminiscing about our football league days in higher or lower. So skip to that bit if you want. We've also got the thoughts of Charlie, who sent in a voice note. So he'll also come in with his voice note thoughts on the recent form. So enjoy the episode and up the shots. Okay, so the shots are sitting in 16th position. The last time we recorded, we come off the back of a 2-0 away defeat at Carlisle. That was followed up with a 1-0 win at home to Hartlepool, a 4-1 defeat at home to Yeovil the following midweek, a 4-2 away defeat at Halifax, and most recently, a 1-1 draw against Braintree Town, who were down to 10 men at the time of their scoring. Lots to catch up on. I guess there is no best place to start. I suppose it's all a bit depressing and sad. There's quite a lot of uh, negative messages, I would say, on Shotsweb, and maybe this is the kind of it's possibly the worst that I've seen of a kind of collection of messages on Shotsweb, which I know doesn't absolutely give a straw poll of the fans' opinion, but hopefully we'll get some more different ones tonight that we can see where we are. I'm going to come to you first, Julian. Recent form, how has it been for you?
I will. Yeah, the recent form for me has been worrying because even in the game that we won there against Hartlepool, I felt we were lucky to get the 3 points on that one. And at the time, I was so grateful for a scrappy 1-0 victory. We were all dying for one of those, weren't we? And we got one. And I was hoping that would be the springboard that we needed to sort of challenge for those playoff places. And I know Guy laughs every time I mention playoffs, but back in that time when we'd beat Hartlepool, we were, I think, sitting 11th, and with the Yeovil, Halifax, and Braintree games coming, I felt that there was a really genuine opportunity to break through into the playoff positions. Uh, it all conspired against us, didn't it? Yeovil changing their manager, Richard Dryden was probably the worst possible scenario for us. They went into his first game without a care in the world, it seemed like. And I think CJ will probably mention it a little bit later, but they had a plan. Richard Dryden knew what we were going to be inside out, and he did a number on us. Basically, he just did a number on us. The three up front for Yeovil were electric, I thought, and caused us no end of problems. And within half an hour, it was just a case of no coming back from it. We then went into the Halifax game, and I was quite confident actually with Halifax, surprisingly enough. I just felt that it was an opportunity to put everything behind us and to give it a real good go. And I was lucky enough to do the commentary for BBC Sport on the Halifax game, and we were talking to the media team both before and after the games. And before the games, they were really concerned for themselves. They were in different form, Halifax, and then during the game at half time, the media guy basically said he was we were the worst team he's seen at the Shea all season. And me with my BBC hat on that day, I was trying not to be riled up by it, because you have to be impartial, obviously. But and then actually we did play a bit better in the second half. But yeah, they again did a job on us. They did exactly the same as Yeovil. They put us under pressure. The back three, lack of confidence. Just so happened that Dewhurst had probably his, if you ask him which was his worst game of the season, I think he'd probably confirm it was Halifax. It just didn't go for him all game. And I think the difference between the two teams there was the experience. Sam Johnson in goal, 350 appearances for Halifax. Simon Hobson and Savon Mills at the back were solid, and we were low on confidence. So I just feel that all my optimism at the start was actually quickly drained away within the first 11 minutes. So Braintree was a great opportunity again to put things right. And when you speak to Tommy, he's always of the opinion that the quicker the next game, the better. So they've got an opportunity to get things done. And for reasons we'll discuss, it didn't quite work out as well. So overall concerning. I did make a bit of a rash comment last night on our WhatsApp group. I wasn't sure where the next win was going to come from, but that was said just after full time. So I've lightened up a bit since then, Will. But I think actually, and we'll get on to talk about a Southend game too. I think that there might be an opportunity actually to cause a bit of a surprise there. But be interesting to hear what everyone else thinks.
Great stuff. Yes, the immediate aftermath of a defeat is always the hardest. I tend to journal late at night before bed, and it was I ended up going on about Aldershot for a bit. It was quite depressing, but I did wake up this morning feeling a bit better about it. And I looked at the table and I was like, okay, come on, here we go. We'll get one win for every two defeats. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. So yeah, we'll see. CJ, going to come to you next. Your thoughts on the recent form?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Obviously, the last time we spoke, I spoke about the next three games being winnable games, and then we went and won one and lost two. So shows you how much I know about football. I think the biggest concern for me is the performances have been poor. I think that's the most damning thing about it is that we just look lackluster. We look like we've run out of energy and options up front. Like it's just, I think that's my biggest concern is right. But then you look at some of the games and you look at the Yeovil game, and we had a couple of chances and at right moments, but we just didn't do enough going forwards. Like I think the biggest loss for me this season is the pace of Jack Barham and the work rate and energy. There's just no outlet in behind. Like you got Tyler Frost's energy missing on the right, Ryan Jones's energy missing on the left, and the quality that he possesses. And yeah, I think the formation tweak with the 2-10s and the striker, I think that was to adapt around not having a natural number 9 that's going to run in behind like we had with Barham. I think if we still had Barham this season, he wouldn't have changed the formation. I think we would have kept the two up front with the big man, little man combination. Because I think that worked last year for us quite well. And since Tommy's come in, I think he's tried to adapt. I think once Tyler Frost and Jones are back fit and playing regularly, I think Tyler Frost will either go into one of the 2-10s or go back wing back, and then Ryan Hill will come in. And I think that might provide a little bit more runs in behind. That's my biggest concern at the moment. Obviously, the back line's shaky, but like we spoke about in the WhatsApp group as well, like we got 6 centre halves missing, and you could easily argue that all 6 would probably start for us compared to what we got currently, and that would free up Mearholes then to go play in a natural role in midfield and stuff like that. So, like I think we've got arguably one of the best keepers in the division. I think the Carlisle guy was pretty keen on that as well. I think their commentary team said the same. So Dewhurst is due a one bad game, I think, because he's kept us in quite a few. So yeah, I think that's the most damning thing for me at the moment, is that the performances haven't been to scratch compared to what we normally are. I'm happy to go 2-0 down because I always think we're going to win 3-2, but once we go 2-0 down at the moment, it looks like we're going to lose by 4. It's that I think that's the biggest concern for me. I don't think we've got a set starting 11 at the moment with the amount of injuries we got. Obviously, after the one game with Theo miraculously disappeared, I don't know where he's gone. Obviously, Mark White was talking quite highly of him on the commentary, if you were listening. And yeah, like we sort of avoided him, and then obviously Tommy had his moment when Theo gave the ball away and all the supporters booed, and then Tete gave the ball away and Tommy gave it back to the crowd and said, where's the booing for that one? So, and then after that, Theo seems to have disappeared. So yeah, it's a weird time at the moment. I think it's not doom and gloom. I think if we get a couple of bodies back from the injury list, we'll soon find a little bit of rhythm. I think that's just the biggest key indicator for me, is that we need to get bodies back. I think Tommy's probably forcing it a bit more as well to try and get these people back, because it makes a huge difference. Like you think, like we've probably got the best part of about 8 to 9 players out injured, and you could argue that at least 6, 7 of them start. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Stuff. Yeah, and we also had Ryan Jones go off last night as well in the game, so he finally gets back into the flow of starting games and finishing games, and is now out. Not sure what the prognosis will be, but it seemed to be. Yeah, I think Hugo said that his shoulder came out and then popped back in, so hopefully it's okay. But I mean, it doesn't sound great, does it? Guy, finally, we'll come to you for your thoughts on the recent form.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also said this in the WhatsApp group last night, that in many ways where we are right now is kind of where we were about this time last year. I mean, our form was up and down. I mean, we had a great, start of the season last year, not so much this year. But we had potential. But as CJ has pointed out, we've also had injuries. We had injuries last year as well, and that did affect us at the back. It did mean that our form coming into this time of the year, October, November, was somewhat patchy. And we started to pick it up a bit after Christmas and into the new year once we got a bunch of loanees in at the defensive end. Hopefully, we don't need to do that. Hopefully, once the players are fit and back, then we can just put them back out. But it did strike me that in terms of the 4 games that we've, since were last on, it has been frustrating. Would I say that the performances may be lackluster? But on the other hand, you do see with Ridrington's team that everyone is putting in the effort. Take someone like Hargreaves. He is chasing up and down the pitch all the time. He doesn't give up. And yet, it just takes one lapse of concentration, like, for example, his underhit pass against Braintree on Tuesday night, and Braintree are in and get the equalizer. So it is difficult. I feel a little bit it's a bit unfair to be saying you've got to keep the concentration going for 90 minutes, but you do. Just it's that one lapse of concentration, and we've let slip. Take, for example, against Halifax, 2 goals given away within the first 11 minutes. And it was, that first goal was a real clanger, sort of Dewhurst and Claridge both going for the ball and missing it. It's going 3 down, against Yeovil. I mean, it does feel, as CJ says, when we're giving away those goals, and then it becomes that much harder to come back. We've said this earlier in the season as well. We were joking about it, whether we need to score 3 goals just to get a point because we're giving away so many. And if you look at what we've been doing in terms of, the first 15 minutes in each half, that's where we get stuck. We've given away so many goals in those first 15 minutes. And so I'm watching these games, particularly against Braintree and Hartlepool, and thinking, wow, we've actually made it to 30 minutes without conceding. Maybe there's an opportunity there. But it does seem to me that, we are struggling a little bit in terms of the defense, being chopped and changed around as a result of injuries, and also, just as I said, lapses of concentration. But up front, it's a bit frustrating as well this year. We've seen Barrett drop back quite a bit. Now that Henry seems to be starting, I mean, against Hartlepool was his first start of the season, and he's been playing a lot more regularly in these last 4 games. But those two do seem to be linking up quite nicely, but it's sort of the final pass that doesn't seem to go anywhere, or that doesn't sort of generate a real chance. I mean, I was struck by this. I think it was a couple of times. I think it was it against uh I've I think it was against yes, against Hartlepool, where you had Barrett playing to Henry to playing to Taylor, and it was Taylor got into position, but it was that final shot that just wasn't was somewhat lacking there. So there is some link up. There's some good play going on. It's just it's not clicking at the moment. And of course, when you're getting hammered, 4-1 and then 4-2, that's got to affect confidence as well.
Yeah. Well, I agree in the main. I mean, to be honest, I only watched the Hartlepool game, so I've been catching up on highlights and radio commentary for the rest. But I think, yes, we have. I think we endeavour to create chances and consistently score more goals than the opposition, and I think that's great. But I think as this season's gone on, and obviously the last week doesn't help when you concede 4 goals in 2 consecutive games. It looks like the opposition are one pass away from splitting our defence and getting through, and that is the most frustrating thing because I think we all I think in general would accept an attacking team that scores goals and also ships goals. That's the nature of football. If you throw an extra man forward, you're probably going to leave a hole. But it seems to be the same goal over and over again, or the same ball over the top, or the same kind of mix up is happening in all of the highlights or all of the games that I watch. And as Julian alluded to earlier, we were quite lucky against Hartlepool because on another day, Alex Reid scores a hat trick with the chances he had. And obviously, I came away from that game really positive, and I thought it was a good performance, really battling. But obviously, on another day, we might lose that 3-1 because Alex Reid was through on goal 3 times and dragged each of them wide. So that is my worry is if we keep seeing the same goal over and over again, how much patience the fan base has and essentially how much time we have before difficult decisions are needing to be made. I'm not for 1 second suggesting that Widrington needs to go. I don't think that's the right decision at this time. And I'm not necessarily worried about relegation, but it's now in the forefront of my mind that maybe we are destined for that spot. But that's what a week in football does, and 2 weeks. So we'll try and spin it broadly positively as we look ahead to Southend away at the weekend. So Southend had a decent start to the season. We're up there fighting with the top 3. But the last 4 games, they are without a win, 2 defeats and 2 draws. Most recently, last night, as we record, away to Boreham Wood, I believe. They got a late equaliser. So, yeah, top goal scorer for them is Andrew Dallas, who's on loan from Barnsley. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was Gus Scott Morris has only scored 3, because I'm sure at this time last season he was on about 10 in his mad start to the season from right back, where he ended up scoring 17. Nice little, National League pub quiz question. Julian, your thoughts on Southend away at the weekend, and what do we need to change? What would you change?
It's a really good question, Will. And I was wondering, and I sort of answered my own question when I started to wonder, which can be dangerous sometimes. But I was wondering whether Tommy's going to bring Nash in to give him a game. But I just felt that perhaps it's a little bit too soon to drop Dewhurst. If we've got a shaky young back 3 and then you put Pat Nash in behind him, I think it could absolutely destroy his confidence if he has a bad game. So I sort of thought about it and then answered my own question there. But it's hard to see what to change. He's not full of options, if I'm being brutally honest. I think you could argue perhaps some of the decisions could be different. Is Archie Taylor best suited to a right back of the back three position? I think Mullins came in there and did a good job against Braintree. But then for the Halifax game, he put Jackson and Penman on the bench. And, I was scratching my head with Rob at the start. We were trying to work out what formation he was going to play in and who was going to fit in what position. So, I think Tommy is still, I think CJ said it earlier, and he's still not sure of actually his best 11 and whether he does make changes or whether he sticks. With regard to Theo disappearing, he's been in a round and he didn't appear to be carrying any injuries or anything. So again, I'm just wondering whether Tommy's putting him, just take him out of the limelight just for a game or two, just so that the heat sort of dies down. But then I'm not sure that Tommy would do that either. So again, I'm answering my own question again there, Will. But I'm not sure why Widrington's there. I don't think he's got an injury, but I don't know why he's not featured in the last two games at all. Just one other thing to mention quickly. Tommy did speak of wanting more leaders on the pitch, and he's looking for more leaders out there, whether they've got the armband on or not. He wants people to be fighting in the trenches, and he doesn't feel like he's getting that at the moment from the players. They don't seem to be backing each other up 110%. And I think if anything changes, then that's what Tommy will be looking for. He'll be looking for a real grit, determination, and a fight to the end sort of approach, which I don't think, from what I've seen so far, he's had enough of.
Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose on the Theo thing, he's going to be at the meet the players thing in the centre of Aldershot on Thursday. So he's still representing the club. I mean, it's we'll see what comes out in the next week, and maybe he'll be on the team sheet on Saturday. I'll come to you, CJ. Your look ahead to Southend and anything that you would change.
Yeah, like we spoke about, we need to get that back line sorted out. That's the biggest concern for me. The rest sorts itself out inevitably. I think Guy spoke about it earlier with Henry and Barrett. Like, they're two fantastic players at this level, but what they're missing is that legs. So what they need then is players running off them, and you've got Archie Taylor bombing down the wing, which is perfect. But then on the other side, you've got Ryan Hill, but then down the middle, you've got Abrahams and Kwame Thomas, who kind of want the ball into their feet and link up around them. It's almost a bounce player to play with. So Henry and Barrett aren't really those sort of players to bounce it in and run past the player, if they maybe on the odd occasion, but they're the sort of link-up players that themselves. So I think that's one where we need to find a balance. They both got goals in them. They just need to be in and around the box to do it. Are we getting enough around the box at the moment? Arguably, but could we do more? I think so. I think the biggest thing for us, we need that set formation. We need that set positions. We need to get bodies back in the door. I think the double pivot just in front of the defence with Hargreaves and Tetek's probably our best combination. I like Theo. I don't think Theo's much of a problem. I think if he wasn't the manager's son, he probably wouldn't get as much grief as what he does. I think he's actually kind of a hard-working Jake Gallagher-esque sort of player that the fans would normally come to love. But because of, like, you look at his Woking exploits and stuff last season, I think if he wasn't Widrington, if he was Jones, he might be more loved by the supporters. I just think it's the fact that he's daddy's son, and it's almost his unfortunate demise, really. That any sort of mistake he makes, we sort of spoke about earlier, it's picked up on more. Because I think technically he's a good player. He links up the play well. Obviously, Mark White spoke highly of him on the commentary the other night when he was commentating on our game. I don't think you can go too far wrong with Theo at this level. I think he's a bog standard holder midfielder. But yeah, I think the back line's the biggest concern for me. like you look at the other night with Gandor, he's gone 1v1 with the goalkeeper. If he slots it in with his left foot, we score at the right time and the game changes. Instead, he cuts in and then he takes 2-3 touches, can't get out his feet, and then it falls to Barrett, and then they clear one off the line. So we're creating chances. The opportunities are there. We just need to put the ball in the net really at the right times, because all it takes is one moment like Barrett putting it in, and the game turns on its head. And I think that's the moment that we're not clicking in the final third. That we got 3-4 chances a game, good chances, and it just hasn't hit the net for us yet. Where at the start of the season, you look at Solihull, you look at Altrincham and stuff like that. Like those moments came in quite well. So, but then we also had Nightingale at the back leading, as Julian spoke about, like leaders on the pitch. Like you look at the back three and it doesn't fill you with confidence when the average age is about 18, 19, 20. And some of them are putting square pegs in round holes at the minute, like with mere holes and stuff like that, just filling in. So hopefully the tide turns. I think Southend's a good opportunity to bounce back. It's usually a bit of a weird game for us. We either do well or really poor there. So it'll be an interesting thing. I think the players will be up for it. Like Guy said as well, like this is probably the most passionate group of players we've had in a long time. I think Tommy's really drilled that into them, that they really do care about the club. I think after the FA Trophy final last season, you could feel that when they were on the bus and stuff like that, and around the club, like players like Josh Barrett, they do really care. I think if you look on paper and you go, who's missing? You go Nightingale, leader, Harfield, leader. Henry's just coming back into the fold, but he's obviously coach as well, so there's a leader there. Barrett's a bit of a leader. So Theo's a leader, and Hargreaves leads by example, I think, rather than actual on the pitch, like communication. So you look at it, and there's players there that can really grab the game by the reins and stuff like that. So look, one win at Southend, and then the tide changes. Tommy's safe again, and the world's a great place. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, it is the most fickle support in the world, supporting football teams. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I was also thinking, yeah, as you mentioned, Jack Barham earlier, he was also maybe, I don't know, his leadership skills, but definitely a bloke that just used to shout at everyone and, G people up, um, you know, all the time. Maybe I was just watching him a lot more because I used to love watching Barham. And the other thing I was going to mention when you mentioned if he didn't have Witherington on the back of his shirt, it reminded me of that interview with Sam Allardyce where he said if he was called Sam Allardyce, he'd be regarded as one of the best managers in the world. Theo Widredici or something. Yeah, I don't know. Guy, I'll come to you. Your thoughts on Southend away at the weekend, and what would you change?
Well, can I just say that? I mean, so what CJ was just saying at the end, maybe we get a win and we bounce back. And then next week we hear from Julian about how we're going to be, reaching the playoffs once again. This is the nature of supporting Aldershot. You say it's fickle, but we have one or two good games and suddenly we're, sort of up by close to 7. 2 bad games and we're down near relegation. That's pretty much how tight this division is. Also, by the way, you sent notes around before the before the call saying, what are we facing relegation? But come on, we're only 13 games in. It's just under a third of the season. So yes, it's starting to map itself out, but we still have plenty of games to to get through. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be like the others. I'm quite obviously the odds, the bookies are against us. I mean, we are strong underdogs. It is all Southend being sort of touted as the likely winners. That said, they're also talking about the likelihood of us scoring. So even if we do end on the losing side, we may well get a goal here or there, and that I think is actually something we should be working towards, because if you mentioned some of the players that we should be looking out for with Southend, but I think another one that we should also look out for is Sam Austin, who's I think had 2 goals and 2 assists, and I think he plays on the left of midfield. And it's also he's also quite notable because generally the Southend formation, the preferred formation this season has been a 3-5-2. So you would expect him on the left to, basically our players on the right to keep an eye out for him. But also what that means with that 3-5-2 is that those wing backs are going to be doing, quite a lot of, up and down the pitch. I think really for us, it's going to mean that the midfield could well get crowded out. And if we're going to make any kind of impact, it's probably going to be done on the transition. It's going to be done on the counter attacks. So, and I think that actually happened a few times in the 4 games that, didn't go so well for us, that actually most of our chances really came from, a quick ball forward. And that's where I think, Henry and Barrett do really well, because they're linking up and just playing that ball forward. As CJ says, they don't necessarily get, ahead of it for the return, but if they can get that ball forward quickly, that could make the difference for us. I was struck by how quite a few of those the goals that did come and the opportunities that we did come came from, going down the wing and then crossing it in. So, I think if we can do that against Southend, then there's a real possibility. The flip side, of course, is, as you pointed out, many of their wins came at the start of the season. Their form has been a bit more patchy more recently, but generally, they've been a little bit more shaky away from home. And unfortunately, we're playing them at home, where their defensive record has been a bit stronger. So, the odds are against us, but I don't think, it's completely against us. Keep in mind, of course, that we generally tend to do better against the stronger teams, and they are higher up in the table than us, so that could make a difference. We generally tend to sort of underperform against the weaker teams, and that's why I think we're a little bit worried, because as Julian was saying sort of on WhatsApp last night, where are we going to get the points from now? I think actually we could potentially do it. I mean, I'm sure there are players out there who want to to banish what's happened, just move on, want to show that they can make a difference. So, it's not going to be easy, but I think there is a possibility.
Well, that's good. That seems like all four of us are broadly positive about the prospect of beating Southend, or at least the positive result. I think from me looking out from Tuesday night, a draw was basically the limit of my positive thinking. But I've listened to you guys now, and I'm thinking it's a lovely 2-1 win. There will be goals both sides. You can almost guarantee that.
After the optimism of beating a really good Hartlepool side, I went into the Yeovil game last week in high spirits. A team that is already on their 3rd manager of the season, with Richard Dryden at the helm now. Quite out of form, and morale from the fans was really on the floor and very negative before the game. So I really, really thought that an Aldershot win was likely to follow. How wrong I was. I mean, I should know that after 20 plus years of supporting Aldershot Town, but there we go. We started well. We were quite bright. We moved the ball quickly. A couple of half chances in the opening 7 or 8 minutes, and I was feeling confident about how the game was looking. But then, sadly, not for the first time this season, just hit by that absolute sucker punch, losing the ball in the back line, and after a bit of a scramble, Tavon Campbell, who we know well, was able to bundle home. And then, sadly from there, it was one-way traffic. Yeovil, who had looked very nervous in the opening 10 minutes, suddenly their tails were up, and their decision to play, man for man on our back three really worked in their favour. I think their combination of Junior Marai, Tavon Campbell and Oliver Barr is really, really quite strong for this level. 3 players with really good National League experience and good quality players. And unfortunately for us, our back three just couldn't handle them. Obviously not particularly helped by the midfield or by the formation, but they were just left exposed time and time again, sadly. And then when it was 3-0 after 30 minutes, the game was absolutely done. I know Tommy did make a substitution. It was great to see Ryan Jones come on. He's looking really bright, so that was good. My only slight issue with that is you can change the personnel all you like, but if you set up in the same formation time and time again, it's going to be a challenge when teams kind of figure out how to play against you. And sadly, I think Yeovil just played against us perfectly that day. The rest of the game kind of petered out. Only highlight really being Ryan Jones coming back looking sharp, and then a lovely finish from James Henry. But overall, a really, really disappointing performance. One of the poorest I've seen in a while, sadly. And then moving on to Halifax. I actually wasn't at this game, so I can't comment on all of it. I won't comment in great detail, but I've seen the goals, and unfortunately, it seems to be the same old story, kind of leaking rather poor goals. I mean, I think we've all been a little bit critical of our back line this season, but unfortunately for the first and second goals, which came in the opening 12 minutes, I think, Marcus Dewhurst, who I'm a massive fan of. I think he's an excellent National League goalkeeper. I think he's made a couple of poor decisions there to come out and not be able to clear the ball, and that's put us in trouble. And when you go to a place like Halifax, really good solid team, and you give them 2 goals in the opening 12 minutes, it's always going to be an uphill battle. And I think Tommy alluded to it in his post-match interview after the Halifax game. We're having to work hard to score our goals. And yet we seem to just be gifting them to the opposition at the moment, which is a shame. And I do understand, we've got an absolute mountain of injuries to defensive players at the moment, and we're having to play young players who are learning on the job. But we're kind of running out of time now, being over a quarter of the way through the season. We can't keep leaking goals the way we have been. And then finally moving on to Braintree last night. Obviously good in a sense to stop the rut of conceding a lot of goals and to get a point, but boy oh boy, it has to be 3 given the circumstances we find ourselves in. I think the defence actually did pretty well. Braintree are a solid, but I'd say quite limited side. And then we got a bit of a lucky break with Josh Barrett's goal, a deflection which took it in, and then when they go down to 10 men, literally 3 minutes later, 20 minutes to go, you're 1-0 up at home to Braintree, they're down to 10 men. You've got to see it out. We really needed that win, and to give it away in the fashion we did again, losing possession, playing out the back carelessly, is really, really poor. To be honest, I think we looked more solid than we had been in previous games, but probably less potent than we have at other times. So I don't know if that was a tactical decision, but yeah, I think leaving that game with only a draw, given the circumstances, was a real disappointment, and it's left me in a situation or in a position now where I'm really struggling to see whether the next win is going to come from. We really needed an ugly win, which last night would have been, to get that confidence up. And now we go to Southend, who, whilst they're not in great form, they are a good team. And then following that, we have another tough run of fixtures. So yeah, we need to start picking up points in fast. I wouldn't say it's panic stations right now, but it's getting to that point. I still have full faith in Tommy and the squad, but we could just really do with some players coming back from injury, particularly defensive ones, and then just getting those vital wins to move up the table.
Grand. I think we've probably just about got time for a little dive into higher or lower.
Welcome to Higher or Lower.
We started it off 2 weeks ago, and to be honest, I've been excited to get back, and I'm going off a suggestion of Joe from the panel, who suggested that we just talk about the Football League days. So this higher or lower is about players that played for us in the Football League. So this is Julian's first appearance on higher or lower. How do you feel, Julian?
Bit nervous, actually. Will.
You will be judged for all of your answers. Okay, so what I've done is, because I'm not that organised, I've produced a list of 9 players and their appearances and goals for all the shots. So we're going to do appearances and goals, a little mismatch. So if it takes me a while to think of a question for one of you, then that's where I'm looking. Grand. So the higher or lower is going to begin. Wait, maybe we should begin it from the last one from last week. Now that's fun. Does anyone remember where we got to? I think we got to Brett Williams, didn't we, last week? Well, let's do Brett Williams again. Great. So the starting position is Brett Williams in his second season. He scored 15 goals. Now the rest of it, we won't even mention a National League player at all. No mention of anyone. So 15. I'm going to come to you first, Julian. You get the first question. Higher or lower? Did Luke Guttridge, in his 66 appearances for the Shots, score more or less than 15 goals?
Lower.
Correct. He scored 12 goals for Aldershot Town, between 2008 and 2010. I imagine 4 of those are at least banging free kicks into the top corner. I remember the one at home to, was it home to Crewe? Absolute postage stamp. Top. Oh, was that a 4-3? Can't remember. Anyway, stop reminiscing about the Football League days. Was there actually 1 minute?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I've not got a notification. That's annoying. Okay, quick. Okay, higher or lower, Guy Maggio.
I'm going to say higher.
Incorrect. 8 goals. CJ, higher or lower than 8 goals? Damien Spencer in his 35 appearances.
Oh, higher.
Incorrect. Only 5 goals. What?
Oh,
That's mental. Oh, I feel we're running out of time. Julian, higher or lower, the combined goals of Oliver Reese and Wilco Reese?
Higher.
Incorrect. 3 goals,
Oh.
and they're all by Wilco Reese. Oliver Reese didn't score, apparently.
Nightmare.
Bring
Bring them back.
we love a striker that don't score goals.
them both back. That away shirt is so good.
Which year was that?
This is
CJ.
the 0506, this one shirt.
Okay.
Reminds me of
Peak
Steve
Will
Watson
and
for
Twee.
some reason.
Oh, Steve Watson. Yeah, nice.
What a player.